All right, what's up, guys? We got another Big Metz's tip of the week here, and this one's a great tip because we all have these on our bikes. It's how to remove and put back on a cassette. And so your cassette, this is what the chain sits on in order to power the bike. There's a freewheel hub that sits on this, and the cassette sits on there, and this is how you generate power. The chain is constantly running through these gears, and this is how you make the bike harder and how you make the bike easier, by going through these different cassette gears. So over time, these cassette rings get very worn out, and they also get super dirty. So you might want to remove it for travel. You might want to remove it to clean it. You might want to remove it to put on a new one. And so we're going to walk you through how to do that today. The first two things that you're going to need are two tools. You're going to need a cassette removal tool, and so it just looks like this. And then you're also going to need this chain tool here. We'll call it a chain tool. We'll show you how this locks on and helps you remove the cassette lock ring just now. All right, so you've got your two cassette removal tools here. The first one that you're going to want to use is this grippy one, and this gives you the leverage to remove the lock ring that is on the face of this cassette. So the first thing you're going to do is take this this gripper tool. You can put it on any sprocket that you like, but you're going to want to grip onto one of the cassette rings, squeeze with this hand. And that allows you to remove this outer ring that holds the cassette onto the free hub there. So you're going to insert your cassette removal tool. And these cassettes are very similar to a rotor. They take some force to put on. So you're going to want to put some body into it, leverage down, and you'll be able to unscrew that lock ring. You won't need that tool anymore. You can unscrew this the rest of the way. This front cap will come off. You won't need your tools anymore. And then my suggestion would be to take the entire cassette, use your hands here, and then remove it all in one piece. Just slides right off, nice and easy. And then you'll have your cassette. You can clean this. You can do, you can clean it. You can replace it. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's how you remove your cassette. All right, what's up, guys? So now you've got your cassette off, and so you might have cleaned it, you might have replaced it, whatever you might want to do. And in order to get this thing back on, it's a little bit of a tricky procedure, but we're going to walk you through it. The first thing that you might want to notice is on the outside of each one of these rings, if you wipe off some of the grease here, it shows you the number of teeth on there. So if you're looking to replace the cassette, if you're looking to just know what ratio it is, it will tell you how many teeth this is. So this one, for example, says 28 right there, and it says 25 here, and it will go all the way down to explain that the last cassette on there is, last tooth on there is an 11. So if you're ever just wondering what the ratio of the cassette is, you can find that out. It's written on the cassette rings itself. The next thing that you're going to need to know is you're going to want to reference the free hub here. On the free hub, there are all different grooves where the cassette sits in. One of these is slightly different and slightly wider than the rest, and that's very, very important because on the cassette rings, there is one groove that is larger than the rest. So you have to match the larger groove from the cassette onto the larger groove from the free hub body. Once you've located the larger groove here, the larger groove on the free hub body, you can begin sliding them on. Very easy, you just have to line it up like a puzzle piece. The next one, okay, I've got to find where the larger groove is, slide it onto the free hub body, and then you continuously go down. A point of note here is that the cassette rings themselves are directional. So I referenced the numbers on the rings. You need those numbers to be facing outward. You also want to make sure that you're keeping track of these spacers. The spacers sit between some of the cassette rings, and so when you take the cassette off, don't let the rings go all over the place. Keep track of where they are and ensure that the spacers are in between the cassette rings that need to have spacers in between them. So we're putting the cassette back on here. There's a spacer. The spacers are non-directional, so you can throw the spacers on whichever direction you want, but all these other rings, the numbers are facing outbound. And now we're putting on the remainder of these rings, ensuring that the grooves are in the right position. And then this last one sits on there a little bit lightly, but you want that because you make sure that the cassette's on there properly. The final step is you want to hold this on, because if it's angled wrong, it might fall off. You want to take your lock ring that you removed initially and hand tighten that on. You're going to want to hold the back of the cassette in order to get this on. Screw that on hand tight. Make sure that this thing is in there square. You do not want to strip out the threads on this lock ring because they're quite thin and quite fragile, the metal that's used. And then you're not going to need the grippy tool anymore. All you're going to need is this cassette removal and the lock ring tightening tool. So you're going to insert the tightening tool, find its groove, turn it the direction. This lock ring on the outside has an arrow directing you which way it needs to be tightened. And again, this thing can be ratcheted down quite hard. You don't need to go crazy, but you can put a little muscle into it, tighten that thing down, and then you'll be good to go.